They said she was just the daughter of a cleaning man. In the blazing skyline of Houston, inside a glass and steel penthouse that floated above the city like a monarch's crown, a 12-year-old girl stood with her chin lifted and her hands wrapped around a scuffed public school backpack. The morning had started like any other, lights humming, marble floors gleaming, a quiet routine of mops and rags and unthanked labor. It should have faded into memory like 100 other mornings. It didn't. Her name was Sophia Johnson. Black hair parted neatly, eyes sharp, heartbeat steady. She had walked into this office as a shadow, the invisible child of the man who dusted the awards and wiped fingerprints from the doors. But the room she entered was not built for shadows. It was built to make men feel enormous. At the far end of the room sat Khalid al-Rashid, 52 years old, an oil sector king from the United Arab Emirates, whose business cards might as well have been deeds to small nations. Houston had bent to his will, then beckoned the rest of the world to follow. On paper, his empire was valued at $5.5 billion, but the true measure of his wealth was simpler. Doors opened for him before he touched them. Michael Johnson, 44, stood beside his daughter holding a plastic bucket that had outlived 3 different jobs and 2 periods of unemployment. 7 years of cleaning this tower had worn lines in Michael's hands and a map of caution across his face. He was not a timid man by nature, only a man who had learned that fear could guard what little you still had. He had told Sophia to keep her voice soft. He had told her to keep her eyes down. He had told her, above all, not to draw attention. But on this morning, attention rushed to her like iron to a magnet. "I speak 10 languages," Sophia said. Silence, then laughter. Not a chuckle, but a ripple that grew into a wave and broke against glass and stone. Khalid threw his head back as if something inside him had been tickled by a small and improbable joke. 10 languages? Girl, you can barely speak English." He smiled like a judge who already knew the verdict. "This is a place of work, not a stage. Michael, keep your daughter from saying foolish things." Michael stared at the floor because the floor could not judge him back. "Sophia, don't. Apologize to Mr. Al-Rashid." Sophia didn't look at the floor. She looked at the man. "Which one should I start with?" Khalid lifted a brow. "Start with French," he said, amused, waving 2 fingers as if ordering a second espresso. She began in French, light and clean, then glided to Spanish with the ease of a dancer stepping from one polished stone to another. When she slipped into Mandarin, the rhythm changed, tone drawing the room tighter. The air between them shifted. The laughter didn't merely fade, it retreated. "Where did you learn that?" Khalid asked. "At the library," she said. "After school." "What library?" he pressed, as if the name itself might expose a trick. "The public one," Sophia said, "and the city branch near our apartment. I used what we had. It was enough." Khalid's eyes narrowed. "Anyone can memorize phrases. That does not mean you speak a language." "You're right," she said. "That's why I brought this." She unzipped her backpack and drew out a folder so worn it looked soft to the touch. Khalid took it as one takes a fragile thing that might also be important. Rice University's seal stared up at him in crisp blue. Certificates, language proficiency evaluations. Not 1 or 2. The stack had the weight of a plan. A formal letter on departmental letterhead described performance that read like a rumor about someone older, someone paid, someone backed by pedigree and patronage. "This is fake," he said, because disbelief is an easier tool than humility. "Call and ask," she said. He didn't call. Not yet. He was aristocracy of a kind that often believes it can know the taste of a meal without lifting a spoon. He read more, skimming rows and signatures, dates marching in a progression that felt impossible. 10, 11, 12. Course codes, assessment notes, a quiet avalanche of verification. "How old are you?" he asked. 12. Michael winced. "Sophia." "It's fine, Dad." Khalid stood, stepped around the desk and leaned against the edge so the distance between them would be short enough for sincerity. He had the imposing ease of a man accustomed to having rooms recalibrate around him, but the room did not recalibrate. The room watched. "Why languages?" he asked. "Because they change what people see when they look at you," she said. "When you speak to someone in their own language, They stop seeing a stranger first. They see a person. Khalid's mouth twitched. Not a smile, not yet. Do you speak Arabic? Yes. Then say something that is not in a tourist phrasebook. Sophia did. Classical Arabic, a line of verse with grammar that doesn't invite beginners. She shaped it carefully, placed the stress where it belonged, and let her voice land without flourish. Khalid's eyes flickered. He did not applaud. Something quieter than applause moved behind his face. Michael had never heard Arabic sound like that, a music compacted inside syllables. He glanced at his daughter and realized there had always been library books and screens and headphones in that small Detroit living room. But he had not guessed the dimensions of what was taking shape in her mind. She had built something in there, brick by brick, night by night, while he came home tired and told her to keep her voice down. Khalid turned, walked back around the desk and picked up his phone. Get me the head of languages at Rice, he told his assistant. He did not look at the father or the child while he spoke, as if looking would give away stakes he was not ready to admit. Minutes later, the call connected. A professor answered, then switched to Mandarin at Sophia's greeting. Questions, answers, phrases that moved from the simple to the slippery. The professor shifted to Russian, then back to English, then to Arabic. Sophia never stumbled. She did not hurry. The professor's voice changed timbre the way voices do when they are no longer testing but witnessing. In my 17 years of teaching, the professor said in English for Khalid's benefit, I have not met a student like her. If she were at university age, we would fight to recruit her. The call ended. The room did not clap. It breathed. Khalid set the phone down. Michael, he said, and for the first time he used the man's name without attaching it to a command. Did you know? Michael shook his head. I knew she was bright. I didn't know she was this. Sophia's eyes softened at her father's voice, then sharpened again when she looked at the billionaire. You should also know, she said, that your last call with investors could have cost you $52 million. Khalid blinked. Come again. In Arabic, you used a word that implies immediacy when you meant urgency, she said. You also confused two terms when you discussed delivery windows. It made your promise sound like a contradiction. Khalid's jaw tightened. He had noticed confusion in that meeting. He had blamed the connection. How would you know this? So he asked. I study business Arabic, Sophia said. 2 years. I like the way commerce changes the edges of a language. 2 years, he echoed, as if the number itself might betray a lie. My dad lost his second job during the pandemic, she continued plainly, without apology. Private school stopped. Public school felt slow, so I made my own school out of free things. You are 12, he said. That's correct. He wanted to say impossible, but the word had begun to feel smaller than the person standing in front of him. Sophia reached back into her backpack and placed another document on the desk, a proposal, structured and neat, with sections labeled in a font you could trust. It was an audit of a kind. Public statements, press releases, translations, subtitled investor videos, contract summaries filed with regulators. She had highlighted points where Arabic, French, and Mandarin phrasing softened promises or muddied terms. She had written suggested corrections in English and in the target languages. On the second page, she totaled projected recoverable contracts. The bottom line didn't look like a child's guess. It looked like a consultant's invoice. Khalid flipped pages with care and impatience. Something in his face had shifted from skepticism to arithmetic. He was counting not only money but mistakes, his team's, his own. He found one of the errors she had flagged. He remembered hearing it. He remembered not stopping it. He remembered deciding that small errors are too small to matter. Why do this, he asked. It was not a challenge, it was a search. Because contribution measures value better than pedigree does, she said. Because I wanted you to see a person, not a position. Khalid looked out over the city. It was a good view, the kind that makes a man believe he has tamed the distance between here and anywhere. He did not speak for a count of heartbeats. Then he said, almost to himself, power teaches the wrong lessons when you let it. Sophia nodded slightly as if confirming a theorem. What do you want? He asked, turning back. First, she said, Promote my father to facility supervisor at $82,000 a year. He's already doing pieces of the job. Give him the title and the pay. Michael's mouth opened. Soft? Second, Sophia continued, create a scholarship program for kids who work like I do. Not a lottery, a pipeline. Khalid stood very still. And third? Hire me, she said. Junior language consultant. Part-time, after school and on weekends. I will save you more than you pay me. We both know that already. He almost smiled. Almost. You are 12. You've mentioned that. This sounds like a shakedown, he said. The words came out weary rather than angry. No, she said, and now her voice carried steel that had nothing to do with volume. This is a negotiation that corrects a system stacked in your favor. The difference between blackmail and accountability is whether the remedy builds something. He stared. He had expected fear, or at least shyness. What he found was a child who had not come to borrow his approval, but to deploy her evidence. Evidence, yes, because now she placed a small recorder on the desk and pressed a button. His voice, his own, filled the room. The elevator last week, a conversation with his vice president, language that moved like a cudgel, lazy, uneducated, not for leadership, the kind of verdict that ruins lives in slow ways, missed raises, blocked ladders, closed doors. Michael's head dropped as if someone had set a weight on his neck. His hands were empty. His bucket sat on the floor beside him, like an artifact from another life. Khalid felt something inside him go loose. Where did you get that? He said, and it wasn't a question. In the elevator, Sophia said. Texas is a one-party consent state. I consented. He swallowed. The law was not his specialty. The sound of his own certainty breaking was. You could ruin me with that, he said. I could, she agreed. I prefer to build something instead. He looked down at the recorder, at her folder, at his reflection in the glass of the tabletop. For years, he had told himself that ruthlessness was a virtue when applied to markets, that borders and hierarchies justified hardness. He tried to remember when exactly hardness had become cruelty. He tried to trace the moment he began to mistake his protection for permission. Your terms, he said softly. Read them again. She did. He listened this time as if the words cost him something to hear. When she finished, he reached for a pen that even rich men call expensive and signed his name with a hand that had signed bigger things with less consequence. Michael watched the signature appear and felt like a door had opened in a house he had lived in his whole life without noticing that wall. Khalid capped the pen. How do I know you won't release the recording anyway? Because I believe in second chances, Sophia said. Because I believe change isn't proved by fear. It's proved by the next thing you do. He nodded once, a king granting consent to a truth that did not ask for it. Sophia picked up the recorder and slipped it back into her backpack. For clarity, she added, placing 2 more recorders next to the first and then tucking them away as well. I brought backups. I recorded this meeting, including your signature, of your own free will. Unexpectedly, Khalid laughed. Not the easy cackle of a man amused at others, but the surprised sound of someone recognizing a younger version of the courage he once had. You are frightening, he said. No, Sophia said, and this time she let herself smile. I just prepare. The weeks that followed did not become a legend by rumor alone. They became a schedule. Michael's new badge opened new doors. His team, many of whom had been waiting years to be led by someone who listened, lined up to tell him what was broken and how to fix it. He kept a notebook. He made lists. He asked questions that sounded simple because they were. People who had not been spoken to for years found themselves speaking. The floors didn't just shine, they sang. Sophia's work happened in windows of time, after school, on the bus, nights when homework was done, and dishes were drying in the rack. She built glossaries of the company's language habits, how executives hedged, how lawyers padded, how translators smoothed textures that should have stayed rough. She read aloud quietly to herself, working rhythm into phrasing the way musicians practice time. She kept a spreadsheet for corrections, another for projected value, a third for what she called friction, places where culture made meaning bend. She learned how to tell an adult that nearly right is sometimes very wrong. Khalid watched his own calendar change. Meetings he had once dreaded became ones he entered with notes, with questions, with a humility that felt like a muscle waking up after a long sleep. He called his children and asked them about their days, not as a formality, but as an interest. When he looked at his own origin story, the years in Abu Dhabi, the first deals, the flight to America at 18, with a suitcase and an accent that kept him outside some rooms, he found a mercy he had misplaced. 6 months later, a room in the Detroit Public Library had been transformed into a round-table classroom by the scholarship program that bore a name Sophia had argued against putting on it. She had wanted something without her in it. Khalid had insisted on a name people could find. Compromise is an art. They gave the program a name that sounded like a map, not a monument. 17-year-old Maria asked the question that bobbed to the surface of every conversation eventually. Is it true you got your first job at 12 by blackmailing a billionaire? Sophia could have answered. Khalid did. It's true she negotiated with evidence, he said. It's true she asked me to become who I should have been already. It's true I am grateful she did not give up on my better self. At a side table, Sophia reviewed an international contract, marking phrases that needed edges. Her braid fell across her shoulder as she leaned in. She felt joy in the clarity of fixing what language had blurred. She felt something like love for the precision of words that tell the truth cleanly. How much has she brought in? One of the boys asked. Carlos, 15, curious the way energy is curious. 202 million in recovered and new business, Khalid said. He did not puff his chest when he said it. He spread his hands as if handing over the number to the room itself, to the scholarship fund, to the idea that value can come from any address. Michael arrived wearing the same hands he always had and a suit that fit in a way that said the person inside it had been seen. He didn't like interviews. He liked results. But when a reporter cornered him in the hallway, he told a story about a small apartment, a girl with headphones on, and the patience of repetition. She taught me to be brave, he said, and his voice caught on the word taught. A week later, the company hosted visitors from Tokyo. Sophia interpreted not like a machine relaying cargo between docks, but like a pilot navigating currents of respect and expectation. The deal they cut came in at $502 million. Numbers have their own kind of poetry when they line up with work. After the signing, a business magazine stuck a microphone under Khalid's chin and asked how it felt to have a 13-year-old consultant. He corrected the age with a smile, 13 now, 12 then, and said, "Leadership is not about being the smartest person in the room. It's about making sure the smartest person in the room is heard." They turned to Sophia. "Advice for other kids? Don't wait for permission," she said. "Build your proof. Speak clearly. Keep records. Assume people can change, but do not bet your future on their promises alone." That night, the three of them walked out of the building together. Khalid, Michael, Sophia, past a lobby where security guards nodded at them by name instead of by badge. In the glow outside, Khalid stopped and spoke like a man confessing to a friend who will still like him after the confession. "You didn't only save contracts," he said. "You saved something I was losing slowly enough not to notice." "What?" Sophia asked. "Myself." Michael's hand rested lightly on his daughter's shoulder. "She does that," he said. "She makes people better without making them feel small." The city moved around them. Cars, voices. A bus brake sighed like a tired giant. Somewhere a song leaked from a window. The night did what nights do. It softened the edges without erasing them. Word travels. Some of it travels by headlines and some by whispers carried down stairwells and across lunch tables. In offices that had once hired likeness over likelihood, managers began to hire for competence. In schools where giftedness had been mistaken for misbehavior, counselors started to ask different questions. The scholarship program filled out. It added mentors who were not saviors but scouts. It added Saturday workshops where teenagers learned to read contracts and write emails and asked for feedback in ways that pulled the right answers into the open. It taught how to say no without burning bridges and how to say yes with conditions that protect your future. Khalid visited often. He didn't hover. He listened. He told the story of arriving in the United States at 18 with 2 phone numbers and a dictionary. He admitted the things he had gotten wrong, then showed how to get them right without pretending the first chapter hadn't happened. Sophia kept working. She collected small victories and stored them like seeds. Every correction was a lesson. Every lesson made the next correction faster. She built a glossary of institutional bad habits and began to cross them out. She also kept her backpack, scuffed, dependable, human, because it reminded her that the tools don't have to look like success to produce it. One afternoon, she passed the elevator where the recording had been made, and Michael stopped without meaning to. He looked at the brushed metal doors and shook his head. "Funny," he said. "A box that goes up and down changed the direction of everything." Sophia grinned. "Elevators are honest," she said. "They tell you if you're going up because you climbed or because you pressed a button." He laughed. "You always talk like that?" he asked. "Like what?" "Like you swallowed a library and it came out as common sense." "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe I just listen a lot." He nodded. "That too?" Khalid stepped out of a conference room nearby and joined them. "We're late," he said, not scolding, just reminding. "Japanese investors wait for no one." They went upstairs. The meeting went the way meetings go when people know what they want and know how to say it. Afterwards, as they stood under lights that make every face look a little tired and a little heroic, a young journalist asked one last question. "Do you think this story can inspire others?" she asked. Michael answered first. "I think it already has." Khalid added, "I learned true wealth isn't accumulation, it's construction. If you're not building people, you're spending your fortune on mirrors." Sophia finished it. "Intelligence is not a club," she said. "It's a practice. Do the work, keep the receipts, speak in a way that the truth can't be mistaken for a threat." And the city, which has room for 1,000 different kinds of success, folded their words into itself and kept moving. Because sometimes the greatest lesson of your life arrives in a pair of scuffed shoes, with a backpack full of proof, and a voice that says the same thing in 10 different languages, so there is no way at all to pretend you didn't hear it. If this story resonated with you, subscribe now and join a community committed to uncovering powerful, real-life stories that inform, inspire, and challenge perspectives. Turn on notifications so you never miss an episode, and be part of the conversation that matters.